Hi, my name is Judy and I'm the City Stitcher, and welcome to my Flosstube channel. Today is Sunday, July the 25th, and believe it or not, we are, including today, 7 days away from ending the month of July, or Jolly July. I hope everybody's been working on their Christmas things. You didn't have to work on Christmas things if you didn't want to. Apparently it's also Joan Elliott July for some people, so if you're working on Joan Elliott's, I hope you're enjoying that as well. This is a channel about cross-stitching and the stitching that I have accomplished this week. So if you are a new viewer, thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me. And if you are a returning viewer, I truly do appreciate each and every one of you that come back faithfully every week and see what I've been up to. As always, if you have any comments, questions, or things you would like clarified, or topics that you would like me to discuss, please feel free to put those in the comments down below. Always happy to have hear from you and anything that you'd like to hear about. So it is a bright, sunny day where I am right now, although I will say it is quite smoky. So as we've had for a number of days here, we've got a warning about the smoke. So I do need to do some yard work today, so I'm hoping when I get there it's not too bad. But yeah, sunny, so Slurpee weather, which we all know gets me very excited. So I do have my Slurpee for this afternoon. I'm just hoping when I get out there it's not too smoky. The topic for this week is let's talk a little bit about beading, and as always the topic is going to come at the very end of the video, so if you are only interested in the stitching that I've accomplished and not so much about the topic, that's where you can jump off easily. A little things going on in stitching land. So I got my newsletter this week from Traditional Stitches, so a couple of things. Again, there's a page over there, I may get that one. So they've made a comment that they are down to their last couple of boxes of patterns for the Blackbird exclusive called What Remains Is Love. So if you're interested in that and you've been holding off, now is the time that I would go and order that chart if it's one that you want to have. Traditional Stitches has said that they are not going to do a reprinting after they go through the charts that they've got right now. So, so if you've been holding off on that one, I encourage you to get on that. The other one that I'm going to quickly mention is the Eliza Martha Lynn foot. This is one that you can get from 4 different shops: Traditional Stitches, Needle in a Haystack in California, and The Attic in Arizona, and A Stitch in Time in Australia. If you are wanting to kit this up and we're wanting to get the, I think it's a 10% discount. Yes, 10% discount. You have until July 31st to get those orders in to one of those stores. So all 4 stores are offering the 10% off discount. I will put a link to both the What Remains Is Love link, as well as the Eliza Martha Lynn foot link at Traditional Stitches, if those are of interest to you. And with that, let's just go straight into stitching. So what have I accomplished this week? Well, Jolly July, so I'm still working on my never-ending nativity. It's never-ending. Center panel, the Bethlehem star. Most of you will have seen that before. Where have I gotten to this week? So I didn't get quite as much as accomplished. I was hoping to have all of my second color of pink completed, and I didn't quite get there. So I have the pink here going down to here, and then that color is complete. And after that, I only have 2 more colors left to go of regular DMC stitching. I'm just gonna, back that up so you can see what those 2 look together. Because then, yes, then same thing. I've got the same beams over here that I stitched in, and the back stitching that occurred here also have to occur over there. And then we get into the beading on the never-ending nativity. So coming along again. I think I would have been happier, but I just didn't quite have enough time last night to get that in after I got what I wanted to get accomplished on my other project for Jolly July, which is, this is from the Mill Hill Kit, A Visit from St. Nick Quartet, and I am working on the first one, which is called The Stockings Were Hung. So that's what the kit looks like. And so where did I get to? So I think good progress on this. Finished the last little bits up here, the finicky bits, to finish off the mantle. So all of the full cross stitches are done up there. There's still back stitching to go. I finished the upholstery part of my chair. I'm clearly still missing some of the legs. And worked on this tree. So an interesting thing about this tree, if you're looking at this tree and you're thinking there are some weird gaps in there, that's where, so the candles aren't on the tree because those are going to be annoying. There's 8 of them, they're 2 stitches each, and they're not close, so you know what that means. So there, again, that's a closer picture. So there's garland to go on the tree, which is all beads, and ornaments to go on the tree, which is all beads. And I've got the candles to go on there. So a little bit of the gaps are related to the candles, but a lot of the gaps are related to the garland and the ornaments that need to go on there. So I finished up the border. I can't remember if the border was over here. So I did the border down here. So yeah, it's coming along. The tree is always a little bit finicky. There's 3 colors of green in there, so you have to, you know, wander your way through that. But we are, so I'm now down to, I pretty much have everything up top here. Yes, there's a little bit of the gold left to go over here and a little bit of the gold left to go down here. And then I just need to fill in my flooring. And again, because as I want to do, although the technical pattern shows a dog, there isn't going to be a dog in front of my fireplace. So there's just going to be flooring, and I'm fine with that. And then I need to do all of the back stitching. There's a decent amount of back stitching in this one. And then I will get to start the beads. So again, in a lot of the sections, you know, any of the gaps left in here in the fireplace and in the stockings, again, a lot in the trees, all of these gaps here in the border and sort of everything connecting this border to that one, all of that is beads. So there are 2 bead packs that go with this. As far as a Mill Hill kit goes, I would say that this is not a intensely beaded project. They certainly have projects that have far more beads and far more colors of beads than this one has. So this one's not bad in terms of the grand scheme of things. But you know, once I get the technical stitching done, there's still quite a bit left to go on this. But it is making progress. I do have to say, I may spend a little bit more time on this week and a little bit less time on the Never Ending Nativity to see if I can't squeak out a finish on this in Jolly July. I know I should be working on the Never Ending Nativity, but if I hurried up and did a bunch of things on this, it would mean that I could actually have a finish. Wouldn't that be nice? Anyway. All right. So that is my stitching for this week. I know, short and sweet. Stitch from Stash. So a couple of things. When I was watching my video back from last week, I realized that I had made an error because I had said that last week I had not bought anything that counted toward my Stitch from Stash budget, and that was inaccurate. I did buy a chart off of Etsy. I have not printed it out. They were having a 70% off sale. I spent the $5 and bought the chart. So there actually is a chart from last week. And this week, so I still have haul from some of the other previous orders that I'd mentioned that I had made prior to July have started to roll in. So I have that to show you, but I'm not showing that this week. I did do some shopping this week, which I have in hand. And so that's the part that I'm going to show you because it does count toward my Stitch from Stash budget. So first of all, I bought this skein of Christmas pines from Dinky Dyes. So it's let's see if I don't have a good white background to put anything up against. There we go, this will work. Right. So that's what that looks like. I have plans for this, so that's why that came home. One of the bigger expenditures was I got this Mill Hill frame. So this is a 6x6 matte blue Mill Hill frame. You'll never guess what this is for. Yes, this is the called for frame for the stockings were hung. So yes, there's a series of 4 of these charts. Technically, if I were going to all do them the same, they would all need these frames. But Traditional Stitches actually had one in stock, so I got it. I have not asked them to order in more of them. Oops, that doesn't quite work. Maybe I should just actually get it centered before I hold it up. Because we all know I'm terrible at fully finishing anything. Anyway. So yes. So it's not fully finished, but I now have the frame in my hot little hands that if I got this finished, that I could pop it into this frame and have something new stitching related ready for Christmas this year. So that's why okay, it sounds really bad. The Never Ending Nativity needs to be finished this year so it can be on display for Christmas at my mother's house because it's a gift to my mother. This would be for me. Is it wrong that I might spend more of my time the last week of Jolly July working on the thing for me and not for her? I really do need to finish the Never Ending Nativity and get that off to the framer so it can go into its frame. Anyway, so there is that's what it would look like. So they happen to have one in stock. They only had one. And so I got it quick before somebody else bought it out from underneath me. Anyway, again, I have not asked them to order more of them. Stitch from Stash budget. Maybe I can convince my parents to give me a gift certificate for Christmas and then I could get the other ones. Anyway. And as I mentioned before, I have 4 charts on my want to get list. I'm getting a little worried about the August Needlework Expo. People are starting to talk about things. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. But 2 of the charts that I was wanting to add to my stash came in. So this is from Hands On Design, Let's Talk Summer. And again, so I have the spring one. I have now added summer. At this point in time, I have no plans to add the fall, autumn, whatever you want to call it, or winter ones. So at the moment, I am just planning on sticking with spring and summer. It's very odd for me not to want to have the winter one. I don't know what's going on with that, but you just go with, you know, what's appealing to you at the moment. This next one is the one that I've been waiting and waiting for this one to come in. I love this chart. So this is from Hello from Liz Matthews. This is the 4th day of Christmas. I love this. I love this chart. So I don't have, so she is planning on doing all 12 days. This is the most recent one. I do not have any of the other ones in this series, and at this point in time, I am not planning on getting them. I was talking with a friend of mine who this actually, to my surprise, actually really appealed to her because I wasn't expecting this to be something that appealed to her, but apparently it does. The interesting thing is she really wants to do the sampler and I want to do the tree. And so here's my thing. I'm waiting to see how the rest of the series, I don't think I will ever need all 12. And one of the things that I like about the series so far is that it doesn't necessarily scream the 12 days of Christmas. So there are charts that you see that you just sort of go, yeah, that's the 12 days of Christmas. And some of them are very clear, and some of them I really love. Hands-On Design has a really lovely set, and I really like that. I like these ones because they are the 12 days of Christmas, but they don't necessarily scream the 12 days of Christmas. Joy to the World also happens to be one of my top 2 favorite Christmas carols. Anyway, so that's why this appeals to me, and The Bird's Blue, and 12 other things. So I want to do the tree version of this because in my head I have this little version. Hopefully, as the rest of the series comes out over time, and I don't know what the full timeline is for her to get through all 12, there will be a few more in that series that I can do because I have this, it sounds really morbid and horrible. So after my mother passes away, the Never-Ending Nativity gets to come back to me as part of my inheritance. So I just have this vision of my fireplace at Christmas with the Nativity in front of it, and a few of these different trees sitting up on the mantle above it. So again, I don't need 12 of them, six in total, 3 on each side. Anyway, they could be different heights. This is, anyway, again, for someone who's not good about finishing anything, we can talk about what a pipe dream this is, but I just love this. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Couldn't wait for this one to come in, so I'm thrilled to have that in my collection. So I do need to convert this into US dollars because the reporting for the Stitch from Stash group is in US dollars. So I need to do that conversion. So next week, when I do my Stitch from Stash report, I will be able to report in where I am. Now, with the frame, I am expecting that I'm going to be in the hole. I know, first month already in the hole, but they had the frame and I really felt like I had to get it. Anyway, it's cumulative over 6 months, so we'll see how we do. Round 2, August Needlework Expo hasn't happened yet. Anyway, whatever. I need to finish the Mill Hill. I need to finish the Never-Ending Nativity. That will help things. Anyway, so that's my Stitch from Stash report. Again, dollar values to come next week. I just want to talk a little bit about some free charts. So a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I was talking about Fox and Rabbit. There's Fox and Rabbit linens. Fox and Rabbit has also moved towards that being the brand name for their patterns. They used to be, some of their charts were published under the name Blackberry Rabbit, but they are on a go-forward basis. They're branding all of their charts as Fox and Rabbit, as well as their linen. The couple behind Fox and Rabbit are the owners of Linens and Threads, which is a cross-stitch store in Australia. But there's a couple of really good things. So they have a Flosstube channel now, and when they hit 1,000 subscribers, they put a free chart for getting to 1,000 subscribers, which happened a lot faster than they thought it was going to happen. And I put a link to that, but I will put a link to, what I will do is I will put a link to the video where they have the link to the chart. So you will have to go to the notes section on those, because I want to at least give them, if you haven't watched their videos, they're giving you a chart for free. So at least watch their video, like, subscribe, all those good things. So they did one for 1,000, and then they said they were going to give themselves this big breather, and they would do another free chart when they hit 5,000 subscribers. Well, they've already hit 5,000 subscribers. They're on Flosstube number 4. So kudos to them. They're doing a great job. This most recent video, again, I would say I would watch that because they do talk a little bit about what they're planning on releasing at Expo. So they've got some linens that are going to be coming. They talk a little bit, they don't do a sneak peek, but they talk a little bit about the types of charts that they're planning on releasing at the August Needlework Expo. So it's a really great channel to go and see what they're up to. They do show some of their fabrics, and they talk a little bit about their process and all that kind of stuff. So their next giveaway is a really big giveaway. And so I'm not even going to tell you what it is. You will need to go and watch the video and see what the requirements are, because it's a really good giveaway. Anyway, with that, I will show you what the 5,000 subscriber free chart is. So this is called Promise of Spring. I'm just going to fold this over. So this is what this looks like. And again, they found out about the passing of Barb Allen from Blackbird Designs after their previous video, and as a tribute to Barb and Alma, they put 2 blackbirds at the top of this free chart, which I do think, to me, this is sort of Blackbird designy style, and the timing of this free chart, and I think it's a great homage to Barb, and to both Barb and Alma of Blackbird Designs. So this is called The Promise of Spring. Again, I will put the link to the video. Again, in the notes section of that video, there is a link to get you to the actual chart. So this is a free chart on the Fox and Rabbit website. You do have to put it into your cart. You don't have to provide any payment information because it, of course, costs $0. But you do have to check out like a customer. You just don't have to provide any payment information. But while I was there, because, you know, if you're going to be somewhere, like, I mean, you can't just look for the one thing. That would be weird. You need to look at the site. So I just had a little gander around the site, and I discovered they have another free chart. So this is why it pays to look around people's websites. So this is the Cherry Monogram Pin Cushion. And so this is just the letter C. They have done a cherry version for every letter of the alphabet. So when you download this particular chart, you get A through Z, all with cherries on them. And, you know, typical, you could change the color of the monogram. I probably wouldn't necessarily fuss with the cherry colors, and even I think the leaves are pretty good on here. Anyway, so again, this is the second one. So for me, it's because you know my line, when it's free, download it, because it may not necessarily be free forever. So my answer is download, download, download. So again, because I had put The Promise of Spring into my cart, did a little cruise through the website, added this to cart, checked out the one time, paid $0, and got 2 charts. So thank you to Fox and Rabbit. This is very generous. Both your 1,000 subscriber giveaway, your 5,000 subscriber giveaway, the Cherry Monogram Pin Cushion is lovely. And like I say, I highly encourage you to go watch their videos so you can find out what their next big giveaway, because it's a big giveaway. And so you'll want to find out what has to happen for that giveaway to happen and what you have to do to be a part of it. So the other one, I know this is like free chart, you know, palooza at this point in time. So the other one, again, Fox and Rabbit are also the owners of Linens and Threads. And every year, starting I think in 2016, I think, they have done a year-long stitch along every year. And they are keeping these for free on their website. This is on the Linens and Threads website. So you can go and have a look for the prior years, but I just thought I would give you a look-see at what the 2021 stitch along, free stitch along from Linens and Threads is. This is called Talavera. I was a little worried about this one when they were talking about it originally, but now that it's coming out, I actually kind of like it. So I have downloaded all. I'm current in my downloads. I'm not stitching along because I never do that. I'm gonna follow Caroline from Off the Grid Needle Arts. I liked her. Like, she's not really a stitch along kind of person. She's more of an ooh along, which actually sounds quite Australian. So I'm in that category as well. So I ooh along as I watch everybody do all the things, and then eventually, usually several years later, otherwise known as quite a few, I may actually break down and work on some of these things. But I've downloaded them, so they're ready to go. So again, so this is Talavera from Linens and Threads. This is the 2021 Stitch Along. I will put a link to this. So in the notes section for this week, under the free charts, there will be 3 links. There will be the link to the Fox and Rabbit video to get the Promise of Spring. There will be a link to the website of Fox and Rabbits for the cherry monogram pincushion. And there will be a link to the Linens and Threads 2021 free stitch along. And again, so if you are interested in the prior year's stitch alongs, those are still free, available for you to download. I think 2020 and 2019 are pretty much at the header part of those pages, and I think you just need to do a little bit of a search to get prior years. But again, there's a lot of work that goes into creating those stitch alongs. I am stunned and grateful to no end for them for making those stitch alongs free. They're still free, and they're already working on their 2022. I don't know, they're noodling on. I think they have a concept which they're trying to sort of finalize the concept so they can work on the design. But again, it's a free chart from them, and I'm stunned about their generosity to this community for doing a free stitch along every year. I think it's amazing and fantastic. So to Fox and Rabbit, Linens and Threads, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm very appreciative of those. So those 3 links will be in the notes section below under free charts. And with that, that's all of the content for this week other than the topic. So if you are not interested in beading, this is your exit point. And again, thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me. If you are interested in the beading topic, so I've actually done this as a separate video so that I have my not fantastic camera set up pointing down towards things so you can see what I'm talking about. Not surprisingly, the piece that I'm using for the examples of the things that I'm considering for beading is, of course, my Mill Hill kit. And so I will put that video here. Okay, so here's my Mill Hill project, which is what we're going to talk about in the context of let's talk a little bit about beading. And true to form, I'm going to go through how I would approach beading this particular kit. Now, as I said before, I'm not quite at the point where I'm ready to bead, but I'm getting really close. So here is the key from the pattern, and this particular kit, there's, now don't get me wrong, I'm very grateful, there's only 6 colors of beads in this particular kit, and they have split them up into two distinct bead packs, right? Sorry for the glare. But as you can see over here, 3 of them have asterisks beside them, which is to indicate that those 3 colors are in one particular bag and the other 3 colors are in the other one. In this case, it's pretty easy to tell them apart because, as usual, I go, Crystal Honey, that's going to be a gold color. This is the bag that has the gold beads in them. This is the bag that does not have the gold beads in them. So it's very easy to tell that this is the bag that the asterisk colors are in, and this is the bag with the other 3 colors. So for the purposes of this particular discussion, I'm going to take these ones away, and I'm going to deal with these particular beads. So 3 colors in this particular bag. And the other thing to note on this particular one is that they actually have different sizes of Mill Hill beads. So in this particular bag, you've got the Crystal Honey, which is bead number 2019. And that's a regular sized bead in the Mill Hill line. But these other 2, there's a Petite Royal Plum and there's a Petite Green Velvet. And so those are smaller than the Crystal Honey ones will be. So again, one of the tools that I use when I'm doing any kind of beading is a tacky bob. So this is the particular tacky bob that I'm using for this particular project. I have more than one. As far as I know, I'm not sure that you can get the tacky bobs anymore. But if you just get a beading mat, like if you go to a Michael's, Hobby Lobby, something where they've got beads, you should, in that department, you should be able to find something, a beading mat of some kind. And the point of the beading mat is that it has a slightly tacky surface so that you can, when you put your beads on it, they don't roll off and escape on you and all that kind of stuff. So the other thing to note on here is the kit specifically tells you what color of floss to use with each of these particular beads. And not every kit that comes with beads necessarily does that. And if you're doing patterns that don't come kitted, where you've bought the beads on your own, so for example a Mirabilia or Nora Corbett, they don't specifically tell you what color to use. So this is an interesting kit because they specifically have said use colored floss that really should coordinate with the bead that you're attaching. So you've got a couple of choices here. You can use a floss color that is very similar to the color of your fabric. You can use a floss color that is very similar to the bead color that you are attaching, or you can use invisible thread. So like a Nymo thread, or there is invisible beading thread and all that kind of stuff. On my larger projects, so for example, on my Mirabilias, Nora Corbett's, I've done a chatelaine, I tend to use invisible beading thread on those, just because I like how that looks better, and that is purely personal preference. But on this kit, because I'm doing the kit, I am going to be attaching these beads with the floss colors noted here on the key. The other thing to note on here is that they have told you how many strands that you should be using, and they've told you whether or not you should be attaching it with a half cross stitch or whether you should be attaching it with a full cross. And this is where, you know, true to form, I am not going to follow the instructions. I know, it will surprise nobody. But one of the things that I do, so the thing when you attach a bead with a half cross stitch is it does tend to lie at an angle. So depending on which way your half cross goes, it will lie diagonally one way or the other. For me, I like my beads to lie square on the pattern, on the fabric that I'm using. And particularly because this is an Aida, so the squares are quite notable here. It will be easy to see whether they're going to really fit or not. And so one of the things for me, I still need to make a decision about, even though I generally do everything as a full cross, because they're, well, one, I haven't done stuff on a 16 count Aida in a long time, and they're using two different sizes of Mill Hill beads. I need to assess whether or not the beads are going to fill the square completely, because if having it sit upright, it fills the square completely, that means that I'm going to do it as a full cross. If it doesn't fill the square completely, that's where I may choose to actually attach them at a bit of an angle, particularly if it's in a cluster, to make that assessment. So I have pulled out a few of each of the 3 colors in this particular bead pack. So here's my Crystal Honey, here's my, what did they call it? Petite Green Velvet, and here is my Petite Royal Plum. So I think you can tell on camera that there's clearly a difference in size between the regular sized bead and the petite beads here. And again, when I'm working on a project like this, this is exactly how I put them on my tacky bob. So I make sure that, so I don't just dump them all out in a cluster and so, I mean, you could dump it all out and sort it from there. I tend to dump a few into my hand and then put them in color groupings on my tacky bob. So I'm going to start with the Crystal Honey ones. So the Crystal Honey ones belong, for example, like here around the edge of this yellow stocking here on the fireplace. So I'm just going to lightly place that on there, and you'll see that I've squared it up, and I look at that and I go, okay, so that bead sitting fully upright and not on a diagonal is going to fill in those spaces very nicely. So on that particular bead, I am going to choose to do a full cross because I am going to want those ones to sit squarely. And so, for example, those will fill in all of here at the top of this stocking, in the diagonals, and around here, right? So you'll see how that one bead that I've placed sits and how nicely it's filling in that particular space, which means it will look quite full when I get the rest of them on there. So for the honey ones, I'm going to put them on as a full cross. These petite green velvet ones, those belong here in the border. So all of these spots here in the border are going to be filled in with those. So again, I have laid my bead squarely on the space where that bead belongs. And again, I think it's filling it in quite nicely. So that one I'm actually a little bit surprised at. But the other thing to know about Mill Hill beads is that they are not necessarily uniform in size. So even as I was picking that one out, I was looking at the beads that I've got here, and I've got another one here, which is not as nicely, as far as I'm concerned. This one is looking a little, see, it's not even sitting up properly. So it is not necessarily as square as uniform in size as the other ones. So, and it's not that I would necessarily change how I am attaching it. When you get a Mill Hill bead kit, you will have more than enough beads, as long as you aren't, you know, picking up your bag and throwing them around wildly. If you have small children, probably don't leave these bags out, because these will be a temptation beyond all measure. But again, when you compare how those two particular beads are sitting, one of them is sitting really nicely down here, and the other one is not looking as good. But when I was looking at my beads on my tacky bob, I could note that they were not the same size. So what I would normally do is I would attach this one. This one I would actually just put off to the side and probably not use it at all, because I don't like that it is not as uniform as the other ones. Now again, I wouldn't necessarily ditch it at this point. I wouldn't, you know, ditch it until I had finished beading all of this project. But if I got, and again, so what I've done on my tacky bob is I've actually, so here's the ones that I think that are looking fairly uniform, and here's my, you know, outlier. And again, that's, as I was going through them, I would do a separate pile that says these are the ones that I've chosen not to use versus the ones that I am choosing to use. At the end, once I've gotten everything beaded, at that point, those outliers are ones that I would actually throw into the garbage, because I didn't like them for this project, because they're, as far as I'm concerned, not uniform in size, which means even if I were doing something else, I wouldn't necessarily choose that bead again. So those are the ones, that small pile of the ones that I go are outliers. Those I would actually put into the garbage. Anything left on this particular project, I am going to put into a little container and label it, because this is a Mill Hill kit. These are Mill Hill beads, and they have provided you with the numbers. So that's how I would label them. So that, you know, if I actually was doing another project that had these same colors, I would actually probably start with those leftovers first before I cracked open a new package of Mill Hill beads. Now, not every kit that comes with beads gives you Mill Hill beads. Not every kit that comes with beads tells you what color they are. And sometimes you just have to leave them as like sort of random beads. And then you get to assess for yourself whether or not you're the type of person who would, you know, randomly add beads to a different project, which would mean there is, you know, a reason for keeping them. Or if you're one of those people where you go like, that is not me at all, in which case you can, you know, either give them away. My answer is give them away to a child who likes to do crafting, if you've got one of those that you know, or, you know, you can always put them into the garbage. So I've done 2 of the 3, and so I'm going to do the last one, which are these petite Royal Plum. And so these ones belong up here in the wreath up here. And again, so when I'm placing them on, I'm going to choose a spot where it's kind of like got just one square, so that I can assess how it is looking in that context. And again, even though it's a petite bead, my assessment of that one is that it's actually filling the space quite nicely. So again, despite what the instructions say about using half cross stitches for some and full cross stitches for others, I personally, well, at least for the 3 colors in this particular bag, I am going to choose to attach all 3 of these colors as full crosses. So I'm just going to take this back off, get it into my tacky bob. Now, the other thing where, so because I'm going to choose for those ones to do them as a full cross, so the instructions here say to use 2 strands of threads to do a full cross. For me, on a petite bead, that's going to get pretty cumbersome. So again, I'm going to disagree with the instructions. No big surprise. So I'm actually only going to use one strand of floss to attach those 3 colors, but do it as a full cross, which means that's how it's going to sit square in the spot. So again, that's a personal choice as to whether or not it works for you. For me, that's just going to give me a little bit more leverage about making sure it sits square. There's a few spots here in the chart where there's clusters of them together, so like right here in the clock. So those ones are from the other bead pack. So let me just grab a few of those. So again, the difference, there is a bit of a difference when you're applying them one at a time, like into spots that are sort of very clearly delineated, versus if you're putting them together in a cluster. And this is where you may need to play a little bit. I like when the beads fight back and they won't come out of the bag. The other thing about having them in the bag is that they are a little bit staticky, which is why you're getting a little bit of this. They're running away from their friends. But this is an example where you can look at that and you can go like, wow, that's looking a little tight, right? So those 4 are these frosted cranberry ones. So they are regular sized beads. So this is a situation where when I start to bead, this is where it's going to get interesting, because I'm going to want to make sure that that whole square is completely covered. But these beads are fairly large. Well, they're just not cooperating. Right? So it's looking fairly cumbersome. So that is an example where I may have to attach them on the diagonal, because that little bit of an angle will allow them to sit together and fill in that spot. So there's a spot at the top of each of these stockings, right? So that little cluster is going to occur here, here, and up here. And in that case, that's likely an example where I will actually attach them with a half cross stitch to get them on an angle so that all 4 of them fit and fully cover that spot. So in that case, that's an example where I would use 2 strands of floss, do 1 half cross stitch, and I would actually make them lie at an angle like this, right? So I would have them go angled from bottom left to top right. That's my preference. But again, it depends on where they're going, where they're getting tight. I could easily look at, if I'm applying them somewhere going like, wow, that doesn't look right, and they need to go in the other direction, angled from bottom right to top left. It just means that you use the other half cross stitch in the other direction to get them to lie that way. So again, in this particular kit, there's a lot of beads, and particularly those gold honey ones are used a lot in the tree to make garland. Here comes my picture again, right? So you can see in the tree. So there's a lot of use of those red beads to make sort of balls that are hanging on the tree.
The honey ones are used a lot to do the garland on the tree. So again, in those situations where I don't tend to find it's as much of an issue when they're going in a line. Like a lot of the spots, like where you're going to see them coming along where they're in a line, I don't tend to find that those are necessarily a problem. But where you see them in these clusters, like to make the ornaments, and again here for the hangers, those are absolutely examples where I may need to attach them using a half cross stitch so that they actually lie together and fill in that space. Again, so when you're, the spots here in the fireplace and around the stockings, those seem to be working just fine, having them upright. Certainly coming here along the edge, filling in all of these with the green beads, that's probably, again, based on my initial assessment, I would say a full cross stitch is going to make those lie squarely and fill in that spot. But again, don't be afraid to change the stitch that you're using to attach it depending on how the bead is being used. And you can make that assessment as you are attaching them, right? So when you see the cluster, so that there's a little bit more of a cluster up here in the corners. And again, I would need to make that assessment as I'm coming along and doing it. But again, certainly for these things that the stockings are being hung with, right now I'm saying I'm probably going to have to stitch those at an angle just to get them to lie together as a set of 4 beads. If you try to put those 4 beads together and have them all be perfectly squared, they're probably not going to fit and they're not going to look as good. But again, I have the option of trying it out and assessing. So in that case, I would probably come along and I would start doing the beading. I would take one strand and I would probably try a full cross and put the 4 on and see how it looks. And if it doesn't look good, it's usually pretty easy to pull those 4 out, save the beads. Don't let them roll off somewhere. And then come back and try it on an angle. Like I say, normally I tend to do it from bottom left to top right. Well, I tend to do the bead so the bead lies diagonally from bottom left to top right. And see how that looks. And if that doesn't look good, then I'll do it the other way. And at that point, I will need to make an assessment. But that is the approach that I do. And again, the other thing that I do, because there are, again, I'm fairly lucky in this one because there are only 6 colors in this particular Mill Hill kit. And quite frankly, for a Mill Hill kit, I'm just going to say this is actually a minor amount of beads. Some of the Mill Hill kits that I have, you look at those bead packs and you go, okay, there's a lot of beads in there. So this is what I would call a lightly beaded Mill Hill kit. But I would tend to come along and I would do all of one color. So quite frankly, my expectation is I'm probably going to start with this particular bead pack and I'm going to get all of these honey colored ones in first. So same way that I tend to be a color completer in an area, once I finish once I finish the full cross stitching, then I do the back stitching, then I do the beading. I would do all of each of the 3 colors one at a time. So I would do all of the honey, then I would do the royal plum, and then I would do the green, so that I finish one bead pack at a time, one color at a time, and get that completed on my pattern. It just allows me to keep my beads more organized, right? So once that I know that I've done an entire color and I know what I've got left over, I can put it into a little container and label it and keep going, and then not get to the end and go, shoot, what are those colors and why do I have these random beads left over? But that's my approach to this. So hopefully by the time you see this project a week from now, there will be beads on this. and I can be a little more specific about how my plan of attack worked out, but I can certainly assure you that this is my approach, and this is how I always approach beads from a bead pack. So whether it's the few beads from the Just Nan projects that I did in January, Lady Scarlet's Journey, whether it's, you know, even if I were beading a Mirabilia, I would tend to go through that project and bead all of one color at a time. Now that's not coming from a kit, but it just allows me to, you know, choose a color, only have one container, one color of bead open at a time that I'm working with. You know, because sometimes in those Mirabilias you get a couple of beads that are very similar in color, and so by doing it one at a time, it just allows you to make sure you know which bead belongs where. It's the worst feeling in the world when you get to the end and you know, when you're working up close, they could look absolutely identical. It's only when you stand back or the following, you know, day when you're looking at your project going, how come there's that one bead in a string of beads that does not look like the others? That's a terrible feeling, and I've been there once before. It was a very swift lesson, never to be repeated, one color at a time. You know, there was beading in the banquet that I did in February with Frida's Fancy Stitching. Now that was a little bit different because there were beads that are called for only in certain sections. So I would haul them out only as I was doing that section and bead that particular part. I beaded as I went along. Whereas this one, I'm leaving all of the beading till the end. Anyway, as usual, if you've got any questions, comments, or anything that you would like me to clarify about my approach to beading with a kit that comes with bead packs, please feel free to leave them in the comments down below, and I will return you to regularly scheduled programming.
Okay, so that's a little bit about my approach to beading, how I approach kits with beads, you know, and again, as I said in the video, even a little bit about how I approach beading in general. So again, if you've got any questions, comments, want some clarifications on things, please feel free to put those in the comments section, and I can talk about those next week. I really do have, I'm not promising to finish it because that's quite grandiose of a goal for me. I am 100% convinced that by the time we get to next week's video, I will have started the beading on my Mill Hill kit. So with that, I hope everybody has a really great week. I hope everybody is staying safe. There's a lot of weather stuff going on right now in all parts of the world for a variety of factors. We've got the whole thing going on. We've got flooding in some, we've got tornadoes going on, we have wildfires and droughts and all sorts of things. So as much as it's a really great Slurpee season for me, I really wish, again, I said this before, I'm all for several days of really glorious, you know, Judy loving weather. I generally like it to be followed up by some rain, which we have not had. So believe it or not, I'm hoping for some rain, but there's no rain certainly for the next 7 days where I am, if not probably at least 10. So if you're in one of those areas that is experiencing not great weather, I'm just gonna say again, safety first, safety first, safety first. Particularly if you're in the areas where the wildfires are, where you're potentially at risk of needing to be evacuated. Please have a go bag ready to go. Maybe also have a stitching to go bag. It'll make you feel somewhat better. So safety first. I hope everybody's staying healthy as well. And with that, I hope you have a great week, and I hope you find some time to do some stitching, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care, guys.